Yeah.
So.
Hi, Michelle. Michelle is connecting to audio, so I think we can start in a minute. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Michael Cantwell, president of the Democratic Club of Delray Beach, and we're excited and delighted to have the candidates for SOE. It's such an important position, and this year probably more than ever. So, and I'd like to welcome everybody that's zoomed in. David Kulik, who's our Zoom master and treasurer and general factotum, is going to just give a brief rundown of the Zoom webinar setup for people who aren't familiar. So,
Okay, so we're doing Zoom. We're doing a webinar format instead of a lot of people just do the meeting format if you have not too many people in a group. In the webinar, most people who are not on the panel, you don't see their video. We have a list of everybody who's on. We can see that. You can actually, at the bottom of your screen, when you move the cursor down to the bottom of the screen, you have your ability to raise your hand, enter the chat window, enter Q&A. I'm going to keep an eye on those, but we're not get to any of that until maybe at the end. If there are specific questions, you can actually address them to individual panelists, I think.
Yeah, except we won't be, they won't be answering anything tonight. I mean, given our time format, we can forward them afterwards, and they can, get us answers back, and we'll get them to the people that ask the questions. So.
How do you know if we are here?
Okay. And take it on faith. Okay, so let me give the ground rules for
I'm going to
the forum. Sorry. So this is a forum. It's not really a debate. We're gonna each of the candidates is gonna answer 5 questions. They're each gonna give an opening and closing statement. The opening and closing statements will be 2 minutes each. And Rob Resnick is our timekeeper. He'll let you know if you've gone over. And the questions, the 5 questions, everyone will have 2.5 minutes to respond. We're going to alternate the order that the candidates speak, so everyone pretty much gets the same number of chances to be the first speaker, second speaker, and third speaker. So for the opening statements, we're going to begin in the order Paulette, Wendy, and Michelle, and I'll announce the order at the beginning of the next question. So the first question, and this is you first, Paulette. The New York Times reported the other day, quote, "The Republican Party, the Trump campaign, and conservative activists."
Michael, we're doing openings first.
I thought you, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I know you were just testing to see if we were paying attention.
All right. Okay. Paulette, go with the opening statement.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Again, my full name is Paulette Armstead. A little about me, about my background. I was born and raised in Florida. I have, for the past 30 years, I've been a resident of Palm Beach County. I am a lifelong Democrat. I've never been a Republican, never will be. As for my party membership, in addition to being a longtime member of the Democratic Party, state party, county party, I am also a member of 5 separate Democratic clubs here in Palm Beach County. In addition to my membership in the local clubs, I am also a member of the voter registration team for the League of Women Voters. And before COVID-19, every month, with the voter registration team, we attended the naturalization ceremonies, and we registered hundreds and hundreds of new citizens to vote. So voting registration is one of my priorities. As to my educational background, I do have 4 college degrees, an associate's degree in business, bachelor's degree in criminal justice, master's degree in theology, and a law degree from Florida State University. As for my work experience, I have worked as a police officer. I've also worked as a deputy chief of police for the St. Petersburg Police Department. I was a member of the management team, and as a member of the management team, I was involved in the day-to-day operation of the police department, well over 600 employees. My duties included budget preparations, assisting with budget preparations, writing policies, training police officers, dealing with community leaders, that kind of thing. After I left the police department, I started my own law practice. For the past 30 years, I have been involved in private law practice. My clients include senior citizens. And what I do is I protect them against abuse, neglect, and exploitation.
Okay. Next, Wendy. You're muted, Wendy. You're muted. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. Well, I'll start again. Thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful to be here with you, and I appreciate your time and look forward to getting to know you a little bit over the next couple of minutes here. I was born and raised in Palm Beach County, went to public schools here from kindergarten through 12th grade. Did go away to college and law school, lived abroad. I lived out in California for about 5 years before I decided to come back home. And I've lived here back since 1994. I've got 3 sons, so I've raised my family here and intend to stay. So I care very much about Palm Beach County. I have, when I left law school and went to California, I was practicing as a lawyer there. When I was in California, I did actually receive an award for doing work with people trying to re-enter. I dealt with people between the ages of 15 and 25. In my case, it was all women. And we work with incarcerated individuals to help them get back into the community. And I won an award for all of Los Angeles County for doing that. So I came back here, got involved in the Bar Association, worked for a large firm, and then a couple years later started our own firm, where I managed our firm of 21 people for about 21 years. And after that, got a call to become the Supervisor of Elections. So hadn't expected it, didn't look for it, but it came about. So since I've been in the office, we have focused on 3 things: integrity, accountability, and service are the big 3, we call them, that we talk about at our office. We've done a lot of outreach programs before March. Now the only one we have actually is for an Amendment 4 program that's currently set because we're not able to go in those places. But we have done a lot with buying new equipment, a new registration system, and making some changes in the office to be more prepared for the upcoming elections. I just saw my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Michelle, you're up.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to join you at this forum today. My regards to the Delray Democratic Club and to you, Michael Cantwell, as president. Your leadership is strong and we really appreciate it. I too, as a member of 5 or 6 Democratic clubs in the county, have been attending many meetings over the last couple of years. And I also founded Indivisible Palm Beach in 2017 after the 2016 election. I ran for Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor in a race of 3, won with 242,000 votes with 56% of the vote. I am a native Floridian, born and raised in Miami. I left Miami, went to Atlanta for about 12 years for work for National Car Rental, worked for Home Depot in management capacity, and then gave up my career there to come back here to take care of my parents, and have been in Palm Beach County for the last 17 years. I was born to an immigrant mother and a first-generation father. I speak 2 languages and I'm trying to learn a third. My forte is in business. I've done that for the last 40 years. I've been the HR director. I've been the comptroller. I've done a lot of things in finance and in accounting. Forensic accounting is one of my fortes. Crunching data is another forte. In the last 12 years, I've run a laboratory. And in that environment, not only am I worried about sanitation and those issues and cross-contamination, but I'm also responsible for millions of pieces of data sets of highly confidential information and financial information on our patients. Some of my concerns are that we are prepared, and especially in this COVID environment, that we're going to have some challenges, not only in August, but in November. We have fielded as Democrats some really well qualified candidates for this race. I am one of them. We have a real estate lawyer, we have an elder care lawyer, and we have me. And so I look forward to your questions, and I look forward to earning your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And now, having jumped the gun once, I think this is timely. The first question, the New York Times the other day had an article saying the Republican Party, the Trump campaign, and conservative activists are mounting an aggressive national effort to shape who gets to vote in November and whose ballots are counted. I think it's fair to say that Florida in general and Palm Beach County in particular are going to be hot spots. So the question to all of you is what problems do you foresee and what measures should be taken to protect voters, particularly minority voters? So, and Wendy, the order is Wendy, Michelle, and Paulette. So. You're muted,
Sorry,
Dave.
I keep muting myself. I apologize for that. Okay, so yes, we are going to have some real challenges because we, of course, have everybody looks at Palm Beach County, and so we have a lot of things going on related to COVID, and we have a lot of things going on with some unrest in the area. We have things going on related to cybersecurity. That hasn't gone away. Because nobody's talking about it doesn't mean the bad actors aren't still there. We're focused on it very much at our office now, working with the FBI, Homeland Security, and the FBI, Homeland Security, and the state cyber navigators. So we're spending a lot of time doing that. I think the things we need to focus on and the problems I foresee will be lines for one, because in any election, 2012, 2016, a presidential election, good news is a lot of people go out to vote. And so now that we have social distancing and we can have fewer poll workers in each location, we're going to have some more problems with that. So we are working on trying to get additional poll workers. We had a big poll worker problem in March because, of course, the pandemic snuck up on everybody, and we had a lot of people cancel at the last minute. So we are getting new and different poll workers. We've been meeting with a lot of different groups trying to get that handled so that we can properly staff. We've also got those plexiglass shields, things that we can do to properly protect poll workers and voters. We have gloves, masks, the hand sanitizing wipes. We have the disinfecting wipes for following. We'll be taking temperatures of poll workers in the mornings before they start, and we'll have, of course, the distancing. Then vote by mail. That's the other way that we can help it, and things that we have to focus on. As you've heard, the president can't stop talking about vote by mail and fraud. So one of the things we're really doing, we have done a very aggressive effort to push vote by mail. One of the things we sent out just recently was to every household or every voter who does not have a vote by mail ballot on request on file, we sent something out telling them that they could how to do it online or by phone or by email. Also included for them the a postage paid tear-off thing. We have postage paid on our ballots now, so that will help people of all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Now, Paulette.
Okay, on the problems that I see the upcoming primary and the general election, COVID-19 is going to be here. And the challenge is going to be, how do we make voting safe during COVID-19? How do we balance the right to vote and to make voting safe? So the way I see that is, of course, we have to encourage vote by mail and talk about the benefits of that, the safety of that, the efficiency of that, the idea that it can be tracked. The other thing is, we are going to have to look at, there are some people who want to vote in person. So we're going to have to look at facilities that can facilitate social distancing for the workers as well as for the voters. So that may mean finding new locations, combining locations, that kind of thing. And the other protection for the protective measures we need to do, we need to look at protecting the workers, the poll workers, the employees. And that means going along with the CDC guidelines, and that would be full PPE, the mask, the shield, the gloves, the sanitizers, all of that. And the other group we have to protect would be the voters. Make certain there's social distancing and while they're in line, and social distancing while they're in the voting place. And of course, the other protection we need to provide is protection of the equipment, which means that it's, again, following CDC guidelines, all of the equipment is going to have to be sanitized, from the desk that the workers sit at to the chairs that the voters sit in, all of the equipment, the tabulation machine, all of that. So that's one way that we can ensure and let the voters have confidence that if they want to do in-person voting, that measures have been taken to protect their health and their safety. The other issue I see would be with the vote by mail ballots. We have got to really have people apply for the vote by mail ballot and to actually fill it out and turn it in, and talk about the benefits of that, and make certain every registered voter, active and inactive,
Your time is up.
regardless of party, gets a ballot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paulette. So the question two.
I need to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
That's
ahead,
okay.
Michelle.
Okay. Being the number cruncher in the group here, my focus is on, before we get to the election, with what I call white hat testing. So you got the black hats, which are the bad guys out there in cyber world trying to penetrate our systems. I think we need the white hats, which we have on staff, to try to, test the system to make sure it's hardened. In addition to that, I would increase the number of tabulation equipment we have for the mail-in ballots, because I think we're going to have this onrush of more mail-in ballots. We currently have 129,000 Democrats that are registered mail-in ballot, 49,000 Republicans, and 39,000 NPAs. I only see that number going up, and so I think it's necessary to have more equipment. I would like to diminish the amount of wait time, because social distancing is going to be in place here. So we need to have, all the systems up and running, ready to go in large enough venues that we can accommodate people and keep them out of the heat. And especially with, it's hurricane seasons, we have that to consider. I'd like to expand access. So that would mean the number of days and the number of hours each day that we allow early voting, and then, of course, same-day voting is going to be the 7 to 7. Staffing. We had a problem in August because we had 600 or so people that chose not to come to the poll to do their work that day because they were afraid of COVID, and maybe they were immune compromised, and that's their choice. I would request from the governor 500 to 1,000 National Guardsmen to be on staff and train them. They're local folks. They can be here quickly. I would require masks for all voters who come in. And I would have staff with masks, gloves, sanitizer, plexiglass screens in place, and sanitize all the equipment after each use. I would also use local celebrities to do some PSAs on radio, on TV, to inform voters of why voting by mail is so important. It is safe, it is trackable, and they can have confidence in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, on to question 2. And I already have messed up my beautiful order there. So I'm going to have Paulette, Michelle, and Wendy in that order. And Michelle and Wendy have both kind of half answered the next question. The next question was involving concerns that hackers could undermine the integrity of voter records in a way that might digitally disenfranchise a voter. The Times just had an article about this the other day, locking out systems, ransomware, as they had in Baltimore. But the thing that seemed most insidious was the ability to go in to the voter registration, which is available, to the black hats, and alter the records so that somebody is listed as having moved out of state, or something that would disqualify them. So the question is, what, if any, measures are in place, or would you recommend to protect those records, to uncover unauthorized changes? I don't know if that's possible or how that's possible. And then finally, how a voter who claims that a disqualifying change is made, how that would be treated. So, and Paulette, you're first up.
Okay, the measures, let me just say this. I think our system currently is secure enough that we are not going to have the voting records compromised through hackers. But to ensure that it continues to be secure, so that the records are not compromised or bothered with, my plan is to definitely make certain we have IT staff, competent ICT staff, trained and continuously trained to do that. And the second part of that to do with the technology. We have got to continue to have technology that is up to date, that is current, that is able to detect any kind of intrusion into the voting records. And we currently have that because Florida voting system are connected to what we call the average monitoring system. And that system does detect any kind of intrusions into the SOE records and internet and things like that. And the other thing, of course, we need money. And that means that a part of my plan would be to constantly ask for money from the county commission to make certain we have the staff, pay them properly, get the technology, get the software updates and all of that. But in addition to that, I would also be making application for state and federal grants to make certain we continue to do that. And with the partnership, we're already in partnership with Homeland Security, with the FBI. We're already in partnership with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and of course, with the Florida Division of Elections. And of course, we would strengthen all of that and work together in a coordinated fashion to make certain our election system is very secure, and to restore and to keep voter confidence in the elections office and in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
There are a number of issues that we can address to make sure that the same day voting doesn't have some of the issues that we've run into in the past. The poll books that are on hand, instead of just having an electronic device, whether it's an iPad or a computer or whatever, I'd like to see a hard copy of the poll book on hand, so that if there was a discrepancy with the electronic system, that we have a fallback to the hard copy, old school way of doing things. I was contacted by at least, I can name 2 friends of mine who, and these are known people, whose vote by mail ballot in 2018 came to their house here in Palm Beach County. However, in the August primary, the August election, their vote by mail ballot was sent to an old address. One was a 13-year-old address and one was a 5-year-old address, both out of state. And so that's troubling because what has changed since 2018? I don't know. I can't answer that. So I'd like to have some assurance and some comfort that that's not going to occur again, and we don't disenfranchise people, because those folks went to the ballot same day and their ballot was cast as a provisional ballot, and that's not very comforting to people. So that's one thing I'd like to see. And that's the remedy. The provisional ballot is the remedy for voters with problems. So the fewer problems that we can get taken care of ahead of time, then the less provisional ballots we're going to have, and then less back-end problems we have with counting all those people. Yes, we already have Homeland Security involved, the FDLE, the FBI, the Florida Division of Elections, but there's still soft spots. And so that's why we have to depend on our white hats and strong and vigorous IT, constant upgrading of systems, but know that we are vulnerable and people are trying to get in. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And Wendy.
Thank you. So yes, what we have in place is we did upgrade our equipment, both the voting machines that do the tabulation, as well as updated our voter registration system. Both of those were outdated and did not, well, one of them didn't really work at all, as we saw in 2018. And then we also had our registration system. Only 2 counties in the state were still using it because it was so outdated and it did not have proper security. So when I came in, we actually made the very difficult decision, because it's a lot of work, and we did upgrade to a new system, which is VR systems. We have, of course, backup plans. VR has their own separate backup plan. We have a backup plan with the state, and then we have our own backup plans on-site as well as off-site. As it was mentioned earlier with technology, ours had been the only county that had neglected, actually made a decision for some reason not to participate in the Albert monitoring system. When I came in, I actually asked the state to reopen the grant for that so that I could get state money back for that to be part of that. So we are now part of the Albert monitoring system. And all that really does, though, is it tells us if they're seeing big people trying to get in, that is consistent with what they're seeing in other places. But it's definitely helpful to us. And it gives us yet a third party looking at our stuff as well as our own folks. I have replaced most of the head of IT and brought somebody in actually from another county who had 16 years experience. They have a very strong IT department, and we have been increasing the IT department as well. We have spent a lot of money on new firewalls. We also are behind the county's firewall, so that's helpful to us. I also hired a cybersecurity expert. So we have a cybersecurity expert on staff now. And that's been very helpful for going through and seeing where are we vulnerable, and has done a lot of things. I mentioned earlier that we work with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the state cyber navigators. That takes up a lot of our time. We spend a lot of time with them. We were the only county that was able to get Homeland Security to come into our system and go and did that for about 10 days. In terms of hard copies, we actually did have in March, and we will have for all of them, we do have hard copies of the voter registration
Your time is up.
just in case anything should happen. I saw my time. Thank you very much.
Okay, so question 3. The goal of any election should be to ensure that every voter who is entitled to vote is able to vote. What efforts would you undertake to educate poll workers to not turn away voters? For example, to accept signatures that may have drifted from the signature on the ID, but where the photo matches the voter? And what efforts could be made to notify people who voted by mail of signature mismatches? I know that that the information is there. I actually found it the last time around for someone who said he had voted by mail, and in fact, I looked it up and he had, but the signature didn't match. And I was able to tell him he had no idea. So I think especially as we're pushing vote by mail in this cycle, it's important to have strong follow-up. The signature mismatch issue is a big thing, I think. So, and the order for question 3 is Paulette first, Wendy, and Michelle. So Paulette.
Okay, that's a real good question because so many of our voters actually vote by mail because it's just a good way to go. But as you know, there are at least 3 problems with the vote by mail. Some of the ballots are not accepted or rejected because sometimes the voter forgets to actually sign the vote by mail. So the solution to that is education. When that vote by mail package goes out, the instructions have to be really highlighted and warn the voter that, and remind the voter that he or she should definitely sign the ballot. And also remind the voter that, of course, they have the 2-day cure period to do that, and with some explanation. The second reason why those vote by mail ballots are rejected is because the signature mismatch. And the solution to that, again, is education. Not only should there be instructions, clear instructions in the vote by mail ballot package going out to the people, but before all of that happens, there should be an education, a campaign to educate the voters, PSAs, social media, media coverage to bring this to the attention of the voter. But on the other hand, in the instruction, again, it should be highlighted and put in yellow or something, letting the people know that it's important that their signature on the ballot must match their signature that's on file with the SOE, and letting them know that they do have the cure period. And the third problem with the vote by mail ballot has to do with the ballot delivery. Sometimes if it's not getting to the SOE's office by the deadline, then of course that ballot is not going to be counted. Again, and the best way to let the voter know so that they can be certain that their ballot is delivered on time is through the PSAs, the media, and in the instructions, again, spell it out that their ballot really does need to be returned on time. And in the instructions, include the fact that they can utilize the prepaid return envelope, or they can, if they don't trust the post office to deliver it in time, of course, let them know that they have the option of dropping it off in the drop box at the SOE locations. And I think once—
Time's up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paulette. Wendy, you're next.
Thanks. Yes, every voter who is eligible to vote should be able to vote. You're correct. And one of the things you asked a question about the signatures at the site. And so we do have at the site, the voters do sign, but the poll workers are trained that they are primarily looking at the ID. And it's the ID that is what they're looking at. And as long as the person is able to match the signature in any way, and if they don't, they can still just defer back to if it is a picture ID. And then they can let them know if it's completely doesn't match at all, there's nothing at all close to it, then they're given a provisional. But otherwise, they're focusing more on the picture ID. Provisional ballot, of course, being the backup on that. In terms of vote by mail, as was mentioned, our 2 big issues are, either people don't sign it or it's a mismatch. But I think that where it used to be a much higher percentage, even in Palm Beach County, it had not really been higher than 1%. But I think what's really important to know is we've redesigned the envelope. And so it's got a big red box right in the middle, and it tells you a couple places on the outside of the envelope. We've put several places, don't forget to sign. And we are down, so our March election had 0.19%, not 1%, 0.19% that weren't counted because of that. Certainly the eligibility to cure is a very big help. We are required to send a letter to each voter if there is a problem. Obviously, the problem sometimes is if the voter turns their mail their mail ballot in at the very last day, then even if we send the letter out that same day, it may not get to them in time for the cure period. So we do try to get to reach every voter every other way we can. There is optional information on the envelope. If a voter uses that, we're required to use one additional way, but we have done every way that the voter's been listed, as well as looked people up on Facebook and different ways to try to locate them, to let them know they need to come in and cure. And I think that our efforts to do that is what resulted in it coming down from 1% to it had some other times been at 0.5%, and now we're at 0.19%. Signature update, I think if you go to our website, you find that's the first thing we tell you is if it's, get your vote by mail ballot, but also do your signature
Your time is up.
updates. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Michelle?
I think we need to start with providing our staff with additional signature credentialing, provide classes that hone in on how to identify a signature. And I appreciate that if the signature is drifted and we refer back to the picture ID, that's great. But I'd like to see some additional training with that. I realize we have 48 hours to cure. My question is, and I appreciate that there's a reduction in defective mail-in ballots, but I'd like to see additional staff assigned so that when we have those defects, we can more in a timely fashion reply or reach out to those voters that need their 48 hours to cure their ballots, to give them adequate time to do that. On the mail-in ballot, if it's signed, I'd highlight that. I'd box it in red and I'd highlight it in yellow because it draws the eye quickly. I would add a lot of PSAs so that we can educate people on how safe and secure this environment is, to be able to track their ballots through the system, and that they can have confidence that their ballot will count. I would, in these PSAs in the social media, I would push to have everyone update or at least revisit it if they have not revisited in 5 years their signature, because all of our signatures get different as we get older. I'd also like to see some drop boxes perhaps put at all the fire stations where people could drop in their mail-in ballots. Fire stations are housed 24 hours a day, 365, and I think other states do it, and I'd like to visit that. I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so on to question 4. And that's a short one. What will you or would you do to enhance the ability to vote early by expanding hours and locations to include downtown Delray Beach and other municipalities? In Delray, the library at one point had been available for early voting, I think, and right now it's for people that live in town, it's a bit of a schlep out to Jog Avenue or Hagen Ranch. So the order for this is Wendy first, and then Michelle and Paulette. So Wendy?
Okay, thank you. I keep trying to unmute. Well, I have good news for you on Delray. We had been trying to get Delray to allow us to have a site, and it was addressed at their city commission meeting on Tuesday. So we received verification yesterday that now the library is not going to be open to us, but they are going to make part of the civic center open to us, or the I think it's called the civic center. It is in East Delray, and so we are getting there. We'll be able to go out with them next week to actually see the site. Of course, we have to make sure that it's ADA compliant and all of that. So we will have an East Delray site. We are also currently trying to get another site in the Green Acres, Lantana area, because that's actually, Lantana is our busiest early voting site. So we're again looking for ways to decrease lines. Of course, we're doing all this within a budget. The county is cutting everybody's budgets because of COVID and not having all the tax revenues coming in. So we do look at what can we do. So we did extend, and we worked with the parties on this. We worked with both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and sat with them and said, you know, within this budget, this is what we have. The hours of operation for the last two presidential elections, 2012 and 2016, we kept the exact same hours for all the March, the August, and the November election for those. But what we did do is we expanded sites. So we added 3 new sites this year in March, and both parties agreed that it was better to add sites than hours. We have for the August election, again, just recognizing that we may have some lines and trying to spread it out. August, we have extended the hours until 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock for August, and we will be using the full 14 days. So we have extended days and hours for August. November had always been, we were going to be using all of those days. So we have increased the number of sites by 3 before. Now we'll be adding for sure 4 because we got Delray. So far, Green Acres, Lantana, we haven't been able to find a place that's willing to take us. And so we are, you know, at this point really promoting for people to get out and do the early voting because there are fewer lines. In March, we had no lines at all
Your
in
time
March.
is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Michelle?
I'd like to see us, the Civic Center makes perfect sense. It is the most eastern, largest facility that I'm aware of that could house the election. It's unfortunate that the library is not accessible anymore. It would be wonderful if we had another location that we could access. Perhaps some of our clubhouses might be visited as an opportunity. If they're not perhaps gated or there's not access problems or accessibility problems. I didn't quite hear what Wendy was saying about what the early voting hours were going to be, except for 7 p.m. as the ending time. I'd like to see that open 7 to 7. And again, you know, 14 days for early voting. I live in Lantana, and I early vote. I either early vote or I do mail-in ballots. So I have stood in the line here in Lantana, and that's what convinced me to do the mail-in ballot. So I think it's a good move to go to the Civic Center. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Paulette?
Okay, so the things that I would do to enhance early voting is very popular. I tend to alternate between early voting and in-person voting. I'm sorry, vote by mail. I tend to alternate those. Part of the way to enhance it, and this is a repeat, but you know, I agree with that. We have got to use the maximum days of early voting. The law allows 14 days of early voting. And in March, we did not have 14 days of early voting. We only had the 9 days of early voting. So of course that threw thousands of people out of that took away their opportunity to early vote. And of course the hours, I agree that the hours should be maximum, and that should be 12 hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That will allow more people to work, especially for people like me. If I had to work from 9 to 6, and many people do, and the polls don't open until 10 a.m. to 6 a.m., that means that they're not going to have an opportunity to do early voting. So definitely to enhance early voting, the polls really need to be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I'm glad to see that we will be having more sites, and particularly in the Western communities, because that's where a lot of the population growth in Palm Beach County is occurring, and that is in the Western communities. So that is a good thing to add more sites. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paulette. All right. So the last question is Judge Hinkle's recent decision, historic decision, beautiful. I mean, just if you've read it, it is a model of clarity. I mean, it's great. clears the path for some, he says 1 million. I think there's 1.4 million. We don't know how many are going to take advantage of it, but it's clear that there's going to be an influx of new, or there could well be an influx of new voters, and many of them may be first-time voters. So the question is, what measures are or should be put in place to assist them and ensure their votes are counted? What kind of outreach can we be doing to groups that will help these new voters get registered? So, and you need the order is Michelle, Paulette, and Wendy. So Michelle?
Well, I'm thankful for this question. It's so important for us to execute what the voters decided with Amendment 4. And in spite of the legislature and the governor trying to set up barriers and set up these legal challenges, these people have paid their debt to society. It is now time for them to be restored to their rightful place. And so how do we do that? I'd like to reach out through the community of ex-felons. Re-entry ex-felons coming out of the system, they're reaching out to others who have had a similar experience. So that's where their trust lies. So I think that's one of the places that I would like to see an outreach effort go to. How do we do that? I don't know. There are people within the Democratic Party, some we know well, some who are in leadership positions, that can effectuate this outreach, and that's basically how I would do that. I would put in the packet of their reentry when they're getting released information on how they go about registering, and have it written succinctly so that it can be gone over either with their probation officer or with their outtake personnel, so that when they are leaving the system, that they're armed with the information that their rights have been restored, and this is how they do it, and this is how they get to vote. And that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Paulette?
Okay, thank you for that. And it is a wonderful court ruling. Of course, it is under appeal right now, but we'll see. And I'm hoping that Judge Higo, I mean, he did a wonderful job. He laid out the procedures, whether or not whether you paid the fees and fines, if not, or whether you've got restoration again. It looks like all of those groups are going to be able to vote. As the Supervisor of Election, it is incumbent upon us to make certain that there is outreach and there's education to partner with these community organizations. Reach out to the fraternities and sororities so that they can, or we can help create a flyer, that they can help pass this flyer out and into the community. Reach out to the faith communities so that they can get their congregations to pass these flyers out with contact information. And there is ACLU has created a whole chart, a flow chart. That flow chart should be duplicated and given to these fraternities, sororities, these faith-based organizations, and to the rights restoration group, because they have been in contact with a lot of these ex-felons and returning citizens. So the SOE has got to partner with these community groups and do some real proactive outreach, supply them with the flyers, do PSAs, hit it in the newspapers, social media, and reach these people before the August primary and definitely before the general primary. So the push is on to do outreach and to do education. And I think that flyer and using direct mail campaigns, just like the candidates do, but there should be a real big effort with the SOE partnering with all of these people who can reach these returning citizens and help them get registered to vote and help them vote. Yeah, so there's time to do that. There's time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy?
All right, thank you. As I mentioned, this is actually near and dear to my heart because of the work I had done in California. So in actually working with women, young women, and I had one particular woman that I worked for 2 years and brought her in. And one of the things that was very important to me was actually helping her to get registered to vote there. She actually, unfortunately, because of her crime, was not eligible to do that. I learned after I tried, but it is something that I care very much about. So what we are focused on right now is.
Oh, you got muted. You're muted. I don't know how it happened. Yeah.
Hey, sorry, I don't
There
know
you
how
go.
much I don't know how much I got lost there.
No.
But okay, well, we have put some measures in place in terms of, because we can't go out and do as much outreach. We are working with the Public Defender's Office and working with Carrie Howitt there to try to get information to folks, because she's been, working with them. And if you've had a public defender, then it will also automatically make it that you're eligible without having to pay the restitution. So that's one way of going it. And we have been working on a partnership with her. We also are working with the Democratic Party as well as the Sheriff's Office, which might seem a little bit odd, but the Sheriff has been great with us, letting us use their boards, and I think it's in their dorm areas that they call them. And so we have voter registration drives, because not everybody who is in jail has actually been convicted. So we do voter registration drives there, as well as doing vote by mail pushes, because obviously that's going to be the way that they're going to vote. And so we work on that, and they are going to be willing to let us at least put some flyers out. Another thing we're doing an outreach with a reentry group. It'll be actually the first, as I think I mentioned earlier, the first one that we're actually able to go to in person. And we are taking our voting equipment out with us, because one of the things we find is if somebody's not comfortable doing it, they don't want to do vote by mail, or they want to go to the site, if they're not comfortable with the technology, they may be less likely to go. So we're taking the voting equipment out so that they can get a feel for it using a sample ballot in an area that is not going to be high pressure for them. Another thing that we're actually haven't done yet, but that we are starting, and it's for both vote by mail is putting flyers that we're going to restaurants and asking if they'll put them in their to-go bags, so that when people take bags to go, they could put that flyer in. And so that's an area that we're also asking restaurants to help us. And we've just designed the flyers and are working on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're at the closing statements now. It's 2 minutes each. And Paulette, Wendy, and Michelle. So Paulette.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me and the other candidates to this forum. It's really been educational, and I'm glad I got a chance to share my background and my vision. And I guess the question is, so why am I running? Again, as I said in my opening statement, I have a lot of educational background and diverse work background. So I am running, and an emphasis is going to be on increasing voter registration and a focus on protecting our voters, all voters, from any and all kinds of voter suppression. So I want to use my law enforcement experience, I want to use my management skills, and I want to use my legal experience to deal with all of those issues, to increase voter registration, to increase voter turnout, to deal with the hacking the computer security issues, and to deal with any and all kinds of voter suppression, as well as voter disenfranchisement, because we do have some of that happening in Palm Beach County. So thank you so much for having me, and for more information about me and my stand on the issues, I invite you to check out my campaign website, and it's at Armstead for Supervisor of Elections.com. Thank you so much, and I would love to have your vote, your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paulette. Wendy.
Try not to get muted here. I wanted just, okay, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this, and to tell you that Well, when I first joined the office, it was not my intent to run. I thought I would come in and finish the year, get the election going well, and move on back to my old job. And since I've been in there, maybe drank the Kool-Aid is what somebody at my office called it. Is I have it's really awakened a passion in me. I've always been very excited about voting and had even in my law firm for the whole time. We were one of the first firms, I think, that we had in our written handbook. We gave paid time off to vote. We also had voter registration drives every year. So voting's always been important, but now that I've been in the office and seen a lot of the things that we can do to continue to make it better, I think our office is a lot better than it was a year and a half ago. But I think that there are still things that we can do. Right now we're focused on just making sure that we can, address all the issues coming up with the elections. But I think moving forward with another term, there would be a lot of things that we could do that would improve. I have already done the learning curve. I can tell you, and through no fault of theirs, my opponents have mentioned a couple of things that would be great if they were legal, but they're not actually legal. We're very statutory driven. And it's just something that takes time to learn all of that. And I have done that. I've worked a lot of hours. I have the energy to do it. I have the passion to do it. And we have done a lot more outreach already. Our office had not been known for doing the outreach, unfortunately, recently. And so we've been really focused on doing outreach. We did over 200 outreach events before the March elections. We have a very good working relationship now with the media, so we get a lot of free things. We've done some very innovative things to try to get new poll workers, the prepaid postage, of course, being a very big deal, and then extending the early voting places. Oh, my time? Okay, thank you very much. I'd appreciate your support.
Thank you, Andy. And Michelle.
Hi, I am passionate about voting. I have been a member of the League of Women Voters. I travel around with little business cards, and everybody I meet, I ask them if they're registered, and if they are registered or receive their ballot by mail. I would expect and I would hope that everyone could be as proactive, and I realize that not everybody can be. I've been elected to Supervisor of Soil and Water Conservation District in 2018. I've had the endorsement of the Sierra Club, the Sun Sentinel, the Palm Beach Post, Human Rights Campaign. I was selected as Out 50 in 2020 for my community activism. I currently sit on the Lake Worth Beach $40 million bond referendum committee, and I chair the C51 Canal Advisory Board. While no one comes into this the SOE's office knowing exactly what's going to go on in the office, I can appreciate the learning curve as anyone would be coming into that office. I am a reformer. I want transparency. I want to secure our elections. I want to expand voter access, and I want to register ex-felons who can and who are eligible to vote. I want to move this ball forward. I don't want to be an embarrassment across the country anymore. I want to elect a Democrat who's responsible to citizens and dedicated to crushing voter suppression. I have a desire to serve now and into the future. I hope with your support, I can do so. My name is Michelle Silva. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Paulette, Michelle, and Wendy. This was great. We really appreciate your time coming. I think it was very informative. And there are a couple of questions that are outstanding. Some of them were answered while by, subsequently without being posed. Those few questions we'll send on to you. So we don't take up any more time right now. And thanks to everybody that tuned in.
I did want to do one of Arlene's. She pointed out that the voter site in East Delray is the community center by City Hall, near the tennis court.
All right.
Thank you, Arlene.
Okay. Well, good night, everyone, and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
4, 3, 2, 1.